Hello, everyone. This is James from Quantum Beer Break. Today we'll be painting the Eternal from Anvil 8 Games, game Ethereum. It's a really interesting model, especially 3 arms. So we're going to look at that. We're going to start with the yellow. We're going to start with a base of the P3 ochre and then followed up with the Heartstone. And we're going to use the red in the Serum Sepia to kind of bring down the tones. So we're going to start with just giving it a little bit of a base coat here of the, I think it's called Moldy Ochre. Mediocre is P3's mediocre. Mediocre. It is a very interesting brownish yellow. And the reason I'm using this as a base coat is because yellow is very, very hard color to paint. As you can see here, it's even a little too watered down for me. We're going to speed up a little bit. But I'm just giving a nice little base coat of this mediocre color to try to just get rid of the gray, keeping some of the shadows in there. Really what I'm trying to do is just get a nice, good coverage of that upper robe that he has, as well as it goes into this panel part of the robe, which we're going to, the base around it has a little bit of like a weight to it. So I'm going to make it like a little bit of a, how can I put it? It's going to be a little bit of a non-metal metal type feel. It's not going to be true metal, but it is going to be a little bit metallic. And you can see here, I'm kind of done the base coat. Missed a few places now that I'm looking at it. Go ahead and touch that up. But the big thing is you should have a nice, solid base coat to build off of. So now we're going to start building up the shadows using the Seraphim Sepia by Citadel. I tried watering it down a little bit. Mine was a little too thick from just sitting for so long. But I'm just trying to get into the grooves, kind of actually just painting it the entire way across. I want to tint the fabric a little bit. Not horribly a lot, but I do want it to sink into the recesses and actually kind of like fade down into the corners. But I really want to get this red color because a brown on a yellow is still a good shade. It's just very dull. But a red makes it look like it's more silky than just plain old fabric. And you can see it's starting to look dirty, but it will get a lot better. Just using a little bit of water to kind of smooth out some of the sections. You see I'm applying a little bit heavier here to get into the recesses. I want to get it a little bit darker. And as you can see, I'm pulling it down into the base of that robe because I want the base to be that red and kind of go up to a really bright yellow. I'm kind of moving around a little bit here. I don't want to keep staying on the same spot over and over and over again because it will start to pool, and I want it to dry before I do another coat layer on it. As you can see, that red is really starting to come through now around the outsides, almost like a black line where the two different materials meet. You can see, like, right there, the shading is starting to come in. Get that out of the way. Now, you see, I'm just going back to the base color, adding a little bit of the Heartstone to try to get, like, looking at the colors, seeing how they mix. I'll probably just go back and see, I'm pushing that the ochre color into the Heartstone, and then just kind of adding a little bit to it to the Heartstone directly. So it's like a 1-to-2 mix, and then flip-flop that on the higher color. It also kind of gives me a range. I can pick from anywhere in that range that I'm kind of painting right now to choose what color I want. Just hitting the edges, trying to get an idea of where the major highlights will be. The top part, like, so it's zenithal highlighting. So the top is going to be where most of the light is. It's going to have that color I want kind of bringing up into the middle of it. And since he is kind of leaning over in a weird pose, the face really isn't the center point of this model. It's the back dragon and the hand. I want to have that kind of bringing that up to where you focus. You can see here, I'm kind of avoiding that bottom portion, just giving it a little more color there, where I'm removing the red I originally put on it without really removing it. It's thinned down, so you're going to still see that red come through towards the bottom, but I want it less as it go up. And this is going to be a display model for my conventions. When we go and to like Adepticon and we're playing Ethereum, I want this army to stand out. It won't be for competition. I'm going a lot faster than I would on a competition piece. But this is a higher quality than just tabletop. As you can see, I switched paintbrushes because I think I was using a 1 at the time, and I needed to get a little bit of a better control. So I switched to a 0. Especially around here on the neck, there's a small portion that's just that robe kind of peeking up from the backpack. And if this was tabletop, like, this would be a good stopping point for that robe. Having like a good 3 layers of color would be nice, but I want it, like I said, to be display. I want it to be a standing, like, just a beautiful army on the table. So I'm going to take it higher. As you guys see, I'm pushing that color up away from the bottom red. I'm pushing it up towards the top where I want the most of that paint laying. I really don't want to cover up that red. Now you see I'm going back because I did. So I wanted to bring that red back in a little bit and kind of smooth out that gradient that was there. It was a little too harsh for me. It looked like there was lines. So I just went back, started adding more colors in between, and kind of doing a really quick wet blend. Trying to bring that shade down. I thought his arm, when I highlighted it too far down. So I brought the base color back down towards the bottom. Don't lick your paintbrush like I did there. So you see, it's starting to turn out pretty good. you're starting to see some really good highlights, some really good depth to it. That reddish color is now starting to look more brown with right next to the super highlighted yellow. I actually do put down some, I believe it's called yellow sand, desert sand, from Scale Color, I believe. It might be Scale Color, it might be somebody else. But I brought that a little bit in there just to get the super tops of the highlights to be a little bright, like more saturated. I didn't want it to be white. I just wanted to be a really saturated Hearthstone yellow. And you can see there's still like a line. It looks muddy. It looks dirty. I do go back and kind of touch it up a little bit off camera. But as you can see, it's starting to get there. It's starting to get that colors in there. There was a little piece in there that I missed. Went back to kind of give it a little bit of a highlight. I didn't want it standing out, but it still needed to be better than just a moldy, the ochre color. Alright, so we're going to go use this Sanguine base. It's a nice purplish red color I like using a lot. So you can just kind of spread it across the thing. I don't really dab like chunks of paint on my palette. I like kind of like spreading it out so I can mix colors in and kind of give it a gradient. And I'm just going to start on this belt. Well, the belt's a little awkward. The way it folds and the way it kind of like overlaps things and goes behind it. The model, it kind of goes underneath arms and stuff. I was just being very careful with trying to get this base coat down on it. I also wanted the red in there to offset like the other colors. I wanted, there's gonna be a lot of blues, there's gonna be a lot of yellow, and I wanted to bring that red that I put on the yellow kind of somewhere up top. So I wanted to bring that in, and I thought the belt was the perfect place to do it. Just adding a little red here to bring that that base coat up in color. I want to get more of that red out of that purple, while still having that rich purple color. Now I'm basing this off of a couple pictures I found online of Japanese monks. They have a different style of robes than like the Tibetan monks. It's more brighter colors. It has, I think, more of a dynamic feel to it. So as you can see here, I'm just giving it a little bit of a highlight, like I saw in the pictures of them having. Just hitting the highlights, hitting the top portions, just giving it a little more color. As you see, I'm not really like adding more color. I'm just kind of using the same color over and over in smaller swatches to give it that that rich color to it. I'm not really adding more color or adding a different color. I'm just adding a little bit to that. Now, I wanted to leave this in because I started adding some of that sand color into the red, and it turned pink. I didn't want pink. I wanted a richer color, so I immediately was like, nope, we're not doing this. And I added more of the base yellow to kind of bring that color into that hearthstone, to bring that color into the belt, so the belt just didn't look like it was just a separate color. It kind of brings the two together. As you see here, I'm just adding that color to the super highlights, the top levels of the highlights. Adding a little bit of stippling. In some of the areas, I'm just adding a couple dots here and there just to give it a little bit of a texture. But I was trying to go for a smoother fabric than a rougher fabric, so I keep mostly with the brush strokes. As you can see, as I do this, adding the yellow is a correct call as opposed to pink. All right, let's go ahead and get some Thamar black. I'm going to do some black lining. Just trying to separate the colors I currently have down from each other a little bit more. I also wanted to use this time to kind of re-go over the model, see where the yellows were at, see where the reds were at, look at the rest of the pieces. So I see here I put it in that gap to give it a little bit extra depth, and I'm going to put it underneath the belt to give it a little bit more of a shadow. And it's funny because as I'm watching this again, I'm actually holding my breath because there's a very high chance that if like an arm shakes, your cat jumps up on the table, something happens, and you're going to just lose all the colors you just had by throwing black on it. So I'm holding my breath watching myself do this because I know how disastrous this could be. Also, why I'm doing it now, when I can fix it easier than doing it towards the end where I have like a billion layers of paint. So this is what it looks like so far. And if you think your model should look perfect at every single stage, not true. You can see from this, there's still like browns, like the shadows are weird in some areas, the highlights are weird in some areas. It looks muddy and dirty, and that's because not only have you not finished the levels you have now, but you're painting next to gray, and it looks plain. So think about that when you're painting your own miniatures. Don't expect it to be perfect when you first spin it around. All right, so I'm now going to do the non-metal metals. I have never really done it before. I'm using Arctic Blue as my height, Caspian Blue from Scale Color as my darker mid-tone, and then I'll be adding some Thamar Black. And White Sands is what it's called. I'll be using that for the top level of the white. I'm not doing pure white because this is the Ethereum and the sun's kind of a fake thing. So I'm just going to add a base coat of this blue, this Caspian Blue. on these edge pieces. Now, I've never really done a non-metal metal before. I've never really used the technique. It deals a lot with shadows and deals a lot with highlights. It deals a lot with knowing where the light is coming from. And I've never done that before. So I use this as not only a training for it, but an experimentation. Because this is not truly metal. It is still like a kind of a fabric, but we are in the Ethereum and everything is, a program. So it could be metal that's really flexible. It could be fabric that has a metallic sheen to it. So I figured, hey, I'll try it. I'm adding a little bit of the Thamar Black to the Caspian Blue to give it a desaturated color to put it to the shadows. I'm going to be going back and forth between a lot of colors. I am trying to figure out where the light's coming from. So I want to go ahead, and that's a curve, so I'm putting the reflection, the highlight on where the curve would be as it light carries down. But it's also a square, so the bottom corner is going to also have a reflection. And it has a rivet, and so that's going to be another point of light. This curve is just a very long circle. So I put the highlight right dead center in the middle of it. Adding more highlights to it, and as you can see, it looks horrible at this point. But I now know where I want my highlights, and I know where I want my shadows, and I'm just going to keep adding in Caspian Blue in thin layers until I get to a point where I'm super satisfied on the blending. I'm also using some sky blue in here to give it a little reflection, trying to get the colors to blend into each other a little bit better. And you should take time to experiment, try new things, be adventurous in your model painting. Don't just, if you really want to just paint a model for that tabletop, then great, paint your models. But if you want to try to do anything interesting, test it out, try it out. The worst thing that can happen is you just paint over top of it. As you can see here, this is my first real pass. About 10-15 minutes later, and it's already starting to look kind of good. I like the top is being nice and sharp, and it kind of gradiates down. I will come back and add a little bit of a white here to the top. And I'm not adding it all the way to the left. I'm just adding it to like the middle and to the right to make it look like it's hitting there and dragging down. Adding a little more black. Actually, blacklining it there because I couldn't tell really where the two models missed. Like the two pieces made connection. And as you can see, it was a little too thick. And like I said, do blacklining early because you can always go back and fix it with the colors you have on hand. And if you like this model and you want to learn more about Ethereum, you can go to Anvil 8's website, and there's a couple of groups on Facebook on playing Ethereum, and we would love to see you at Adepticon also playing. We are not affiliated with them, we just really, really like the game. I'm going a little quick between these layers because I still want it to be wet from the previous layer, so it's a little bit of a wet blending while just doing normal blending. And I'm going to skip ahead, and this is kind of what I had at the end. I'm not super satisfied with this. I do go back, make a little bit of a few touch-ups here and there, but I'm, for a first try at doing some non-metal metals, I was happy. So I'm going to use some Wardens of Tianran. This is for the backpack, the breastplate he's got on, which is like a wooden breastplate. He's got a couple of straps that he has, hooking like the dragon shoulder plates on. I'm just using them there to kind of get like a base coat down. I do really like this pose. It's a very dynamic pose. I mean, he's got 4 arms, and they're all in different angles, different poses. He's kind of like in the middle of a like a kung fu, like when you spin out, so you put your hand behind you to kind of carry the energy. It makes it a very interesting model to paint. Very difficult on where to put highlights and shadows. So also here, these little tiny like side plates, the backpack. And I am doing it in thin layers. That's why it doesn't look like it immediately coats the whole thing. Because I want to get like, you could just smather paint on it. But a thinner coat of paint is going to bring the details that are on the miniature out more, and that's what I'm looking for. I want to see the grooves on this backpack. I want to see the grooves on the breastplate. And you don't have to do like 3,000 individual layers on each piece. Like, you can get away with like 5 or 6 or even like 3. I think I did a pass of like 3 different passes with this one color, just because it was a base coat. All right, the go-to Agrath Earthshade. I don't put it everywhere, but I will use it to tint down that rucksack tan to a more wood color, and also fill in the gaps with a shade. Also, as you can see, I'm kind of like leaving it like just a little bit on the outside of that piece to give it a shadow. And don't let anyone ever tell you, like, never use washes, like, washes are terrible, they're cheating. Yeah, they're cheating. But that's perfectly fine. Like, go ahead and cheat. Like, look at this. I could paint every single one of those lines. But it's way easier for me to go ahead, just add a little bit of a wash, and have instant shadows. Using a wash to tint things down. Using it to blackline. All these things are perfectly valid to use them for. I noticed that the belt had a little bit of a tick on it where I nicked it. And this is after a couple hours of just painting. Didn't need to show every single bit of it. It's the same process over and over again. I just did the leggings, like his these little shorts he has on, the legging wraps. I finished up the straps, the 2 arm pieces, and the middle kind of like coverings on the bottom of the thing. I also added in his skin color because I wanted to see, especially around the feet, where his skin was. Now, what I'm doing here is, you can see where I did a test. I practiced to do some non-metal metals, and it came out horrid. I did not like it. It looked like it looked like waves hitting a shore, and I didn't like it. So I started looking around at swords and realize the blade itself doesn't have to be all one material. So I just started taking the yellows that I had that I did before. I added a little bit of red to kind of give it a shade, and I just started painting over my non-metal metal practice test that I had there. I do a lot of stippling. As you can see here, I'm just kind of taking that yellow and just poking at it to kind of give it a not rusted, but a more decorative look to that blade. If you were also going to be using, if you're going to be doing like a sun blade for like D&D or some type of magical blade, this is a really good way of doing it. Where you start with this reddish yellow and just keep going up in colors and just stippling. Just adding like small dots everywhere. And then I just kind of gray out the blade. Add some white to give it a little bit of a sheen from the non-metal metal. A little bit of black line where the blade meets this new decorative piece, and then just hitting the tip with white and the blade with white to make it look like it's reflecting the sun. There you go. That is a perfectly acceptable blade. A little bit of non-metal metal, decorative portions to it. It makes it look, it stands out a lot more than just a plain old metallic blade. All right, Umbral Umber and Bloodstone. I like these two. I like this combination. Adding Rex Tianran for the highlights. I like this combination for ethnic skin. In the pictures, he's a very dark-skinned individual, and I wanted to bring that out, but I didn't want to just do a bunch of browns. So using a base of the Umbral Umber to give that purplish brown color, and then adding in Bloodstone to bring up the colors, gives it a feeling of blood underneath the flesh, and gives it more rich tones than just, say, doing a brown and then adding a little bit of a tan to it to bring up the colors. As you can see, I don't have that blade painted just because I got bored of painting blades. So I moved on to doing the skin. Perfectly acceptable. I mean, you always go back and work on other pieces. Just adding more and more of the bloodstone in there, highlighting certain parts. I go and start adding in some rustic tan for where the joints meet, where the light hits it, kind of using that same non-metal metal, but on flesh, where it kind of the sun carries down the arm. The cheekbones, the nose. Since his head's tipped forward, I didn't really highlight his chin too much. I wanted that to be more of a shadow. You'll also see later he has these two lines that go across his head, into his eyes, and then down his cheeks. And in the picture, they're glowing neon blue. And I really like that, and I really wanted to have that on there also. And since I already used blue, and I used it in a very high level, I wanted to kind of bring that color in, but as a more neon. And you can see here, I'm adding more of that rucksack tan to the color I have, and just hitting joints, the top of the hand. I'll also get, like, you'll see in a few minutes, his temple, because where it comes into where his eyes are, it would also catch right there in the corner. As you can see, the upper arm, as soon as I move it back out of the shadow, you'll see that line I was talking about where like the light hits it and carries down his arm. I'm actually highlighting the end of the sword there because for some reason I thought it was his thumb. The joints inside the hand, the light carrying down, and as you see, I'm just getting smaller and smaller with those highlights. And I'm not going to wash it to bring it all together. It's when I looked at on the final look through, it looked great without a wash on it. The back of the heels, toes, his nose, and that once again the tip of his brow, his cheeks, and then the corners of his temples. Just a few missed highlights there. And it's just a really thin down of the highlight that I was using. Once again, the back of his ankles. Back of the balls of his feet. Because that's most where he'll be walking. That's where most of the wear would be. And here we go with the blues. So I'm using the same blues as I did before. I'm just going to now make them, as opposed to a metalish, I'm going to make them neon. So just using the edge of my brush, I'm going to add in this this dark blue, that Caspian Sea blue added with a little bit of black to it, to bring that as just a dark, desaturated blue. So I'm just being really careful here. I just want to hit that line. And now I'm adding in the Caspian blue mixed with a little bit of the lighter blue. See here, I'm actually putting it not only on his eye, but around his eye as a little bit of a glow. And it really is thin, so you could see the highlights I did from his skin through the blue. And I'm just adding white to it. To give it that neon super highlight. Carry that down to the cheeks and his eye. Now I'm just leaving that old color there. I'm not really giving it any more color. I just wanted that tint to it. Kind of like a Space Marine's eye. The center is going to be really, really bright, and then it's just going to go immediately into almost the dullest color you can have. Adding more white. And I'm never using true white here. I'm always adding in some of the base color, just even a minuscule amount, just to tie it all back in with that color. Using it as like a blade, I'm just highlighting that one little part on his cheek. Same on this one. And there we go. Do some touch-ups, finish the blades, and everything will be done. That's natural light. And artificial light. A true light bulb. And the final product. I really like painting this model. It was a great model. Thank you for watching. I hope you appreciated it. I hope you learned something from watching this. Have a great day.